Story 4. The Midnight Intruder. This happened during a Boy Scout campout when I was 15. My friend, who was supposed to share the tent with me, had to cancel last minute, leaving me to pitch and sleep in the tent alone. The sun was setting as we returned to camp after a long day of hiking. It was already dark, and I was still struggling to set up the tent by myself. Eventually, someone came over to help, and we finally had dinner. After the usual scary stories around the campfire, we all went to bed. I was a little relieved to have the tent to myself, more room to spread out. I fell asleep quickly, but woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of someone stomping around my tent. I assumed it was another scout needing to use the bathroom. You might think all our tents were close together, but our scoutmasters had us pitch them far apart, so I was pretty isolated. The stomping continued, circling the tent. I was sure someone was messing with me. I called out, but whoever it was just stomped off into the woods. I almost went after them, but decided it wasn't worth it and tried to go back to sleep. But it was hard after that. Just when I was about to doze off, the stomping returned, circling the tent again. Now I was angry. I unzipped the tent, ready to confront whoever it was. But instead of a scout, I saw a tall man, probably 6'5", in his mid-30s. My heart pounded as he gave me a creepy smile and brought a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. I couldn't even scream. I spun around and sprinted to my scoutmaster's tent, screaming for help. My scoutmaster rushed out before I even reached him. I told him what I saw, and he, along with another scoutmaster, grabbed a rifle and ran to my tent. The man was gone, but they found tracks circling my tent. We all moved our tents closer together after that, practically on top of each other. The trip was cut short, and we went home the next day. I've never gone camping since, and I don't plan to ever again. Story 3. The Laughing Man. Last summer, a few friends and I went camping along the Willamette River. We hiked deep into the woods and spent the night fishing, listening to music, and drinking until everything seemed hilarious. We called it a night around 2 a.m. I shared a tent with one friend, while the other two shared another. We could hear them laughing about something, and at first, we joined in. But soon, it got annoying, so we yelled for them to shut up. One of them responded, "It's not us." That's when I realized the laughter didn't sound like either of them. It was just one person laughing, and it was getting closer. Even in my drunken state, I realized how strange it was for someone to be out here in the woods, laughing alone at this hour. The laughter grew louder, and my friend gave me a worried look. Our other friends yelled that they were getting freaked out too. The laughter was unmistakably that of a man in his 30s or 40s, drunk, and seemingly having a great time. But there was something off about it, like it was missing something. It's hard to explain, but you had to be there to understand. The laughter was now at the edge of our campsite, but we heard no footsteps. The woods were thick, making it impossible to move without noise. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. We sat in silence, looking at each other, trying to process what had just happened. Then, something brushed against our tent, and we saw the outline of a hand pressing against the fabric. We screamed and bolted out of the tent, running through the woods as fast as we could, our friends following. After what felt like forever, we found our car. I was so shaken that I threw up before taking the wheel. I don't condone drinking and driving, but in that moment, it felt like our only option. I have no idea who or what that was, but it's the most terrifying experience of my life. Story 2. The Unseen Photographer. After college, I went backpacking in the Canadian wilderness alone. I was in the middle of nowhere, with the nearest town a 3-hour bus ride away. In 7 days, I only saw one person from a distance. I took lots of pictures with a disposable camera, as this was before digital cameras were common. When I got home and had the film developed, everything seemed normal, until I got to the middle of the roll. There were 2 pictures of me, asleep in my tent. I freaked out. To this day, I have no idea how those pictures were taken. I haven't been camping since, and I sleep with my door open and curtains shut, always feeling like someone's watching. Story 1. The Homeless Man in the Gorge. My boyfriend and I decided to go camping in the gorge for some quality time. It was our first trip alone without friends. As we prepared our gear, two sketchy-looking guys came out of the trailhead, eyed us, and returned to their old Volkswagen van. I had a bad feeling but brushed it off. We hiked to our spot. One I'd camped at before. I noticed someone else camping up the hill, so we chose a spot further down, out of sight but not out of earshot. As it got dark, I started collecting firewood when the man appeared, offering to sell us a bundle for $10. I laughed, pointing out we were in the woods and didn't need to buy wood. But he insisted they cleared out the area. He claimed he'd been camping there alone for a month, but his stories didn't add up. He wasn't alone. I could hear him yelling with someone earlier. As night fell, I was uneasy. The man stayed at our campsite, helping with the fire. When he finally left, I whispered to my boyfriend that I couldn't stay with that man so close. But my boyfriend convinced me to stay. All night, we heard twigs snapping around our tarp. I knew it was him, watching us. We quietly packed up to leave, leaving the tarp behind so he wouldn't hear us. As we stood to leave, he yelled, "Leaving so soon?" We ran, hearing him calling us back. We reached our car and sped away. I called the rangers the next morning to report him. Luckily, all we lost were our tarps.